My name is JT Nesbitt. I'm a motorcycle designer, and I've always felt that to be a good designer means having heroes. I want to take a minute and talk about one of mine. John Britten built an amazing and beautiful motorcycle, but there's a lot of myths surrounding his work. One of those myths is that Britten built a world-beating racing motorcycle, and that's not entirely true. What he built was a Ducati-beating motorcycle. In the early 1990s, Ducati's racing program was pretty much run by privateers. One of John Britten's many geniuses was choosing his battles wisely. He did not go up against the might of Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki, and Yamaha. He chose to compete against the littlest players, that being Ducati, in races that were pretty much dedicated to V-twins. The motorcycle that he built, I would argue, is still one of the most beautiful motorcycles ever made. It's the perfect blend of art and engineering, and it's designed entirely from first principles. To say that it's merely a racing motorcycle and that's what gives it value is to ignore the most important aspects of that project and how he changed the world. What makes his motorcycle so appealing is the fact that it's got one man's name on it. We know exactly who is responsible for the entire project. Now, it's a myth that he was just one guy working in his garage. The other amazing talent that he had was motivating the people around him and bringing out the best in his friends. One of the most interesting parts of the Britten for me is where the rear shock lives. It's actually in front of the engine. It's got a pull rod that attaches to the swing arm, which makes it real easy for you to adjust ride height in the rear and the swing arm angle. So what he did is he took all the mass of that shock absorber, took it out of the back of the bike and put it on the front with a front rocker and a system of pull rods that actually compresses the shock. It's really an overlooked masterpiece of engineering. The front fork on a Britten motorcycle is a version of a Hossack, which was designed by Norman Hossack, and Norman really never got the credit that he deserved for inventing that system. What John Britten did with the Hossack style front end is he converted the material. He went to full carbon composite for all of the structural pieces, at least the blades. It was really smart. It reduces unsprung weight. He also built his own wheels out of carbon fiber, the first guy to ever do it, to reduce unsprung weight. A good friend of mine, a man named Gary Turner, who now runs Blackstone Tech, was with John helping him with those composites in the very early days. It was a new material. They were still figuring out how to make it work, and they didn't have the benefit of modern CAD software and finite element analysis to make it work. And yet, after a couple of tries, it worked beautifully. Look at how the axles of the front wheel are built. It's this giant hollow axle so that they could make the wheel bearings as large as possible, thereby minimizing the weight of the bearing itself. The way the structural carbon body across the top of the motorcycle has these beautiful organic forms, and it delineates the top of the bike, which is this organic masterpiece, from the mechanicals, which are below that waistline. Nothing like that had ever been built before. A big part of achieving that beautiful organic shape, that flowing shape across the top of the machine, was relocating the radiator to under the seat and having ports, ducts, in front of the fairing to take high pressure air from the front of the motorcycle and have it organically be drawn through the rear, the low pressure zone over the rear wheel. It's such a skinny thing, and his philosophy of aerodynamics was really sound. It's let's reduce the parts, let's make it as skinny as possible. It's got a certain proportion, the way that the fairing is so sinuous. I think that John Britten built the most beautiful modern sporting motorcycle because he had to. It's something that he needed to do to get it out of his system. What thrills me so much when I'm in the presence of his work is that I feel like I'm in the presence of the work of a great master. He thought about everything in a whole new and fresh way. All of these things that he did, I studied very closely and have applied maybe not the exact methods, but certainly the methodology. I'm doing the same things that he did and for the same reasons. It's just our goals are different. His goal was to build a bike that would go around a racetrack as quickly as possible. My goal is to build a motorcycle that'll still be running in 100 years. It's still a race, but my race is one of endurance. Even though our goals are so different, I think that if John Britten and I were able to have a drink together and have a look at the Magnolia 4, I think he would really enjoy it. He's one of my heroes. Thank you, John, for the inspiration.